So in this episode on the Frankenmill, we're going to go ahead and finish up the front way cover. We've already made our saddle block, which is going to be one of our clamping surfaces for the front way cover. And I've chosen to use a 1/32 inch thick rubber. And this is the same type of rubber that's used on Bridgeports and other professional mills. This is just a thinner version of it, depending on where on another mill or lathe that may be used. I've cut an oversized piece to start with so I can trim it later. I'll probably going to leave this a little bit oversized so it will protect some of the other fixtures I'm planning on putting along the sides here from chips, just to keep it a little bit easier cleanup. The reason I've chosen to go with this rubber versus the type of plastic that's used on the covers from Shoreline is, one, it's going to be easier because we don't have to fold it or manipulate it. And two, it's significantly more durable. I've torn this one already in the back when I got a little too close to it with a vacuum when I was cleaning up some chips. This stuff, I can put the vacuum directly on and it doesn't damage it. So I believe it's going to hold up better over time. Plus, I've got a fairly large sheet of this that I got for less than $8 on eBay, and that was shipped. I'll put the name of the seller up that I purchased this from. So it's quite a low-cost material to use, and I got enough material here to do several mills worth, or probably to last me a very, very long time in replacement covers if these do begin to wear at all. To start, I've punched a couple of holes in here already, a total of 4 holes. This is also going to act as a seal for our oiler, so that hole you don't want to have notched or do anything along those lines. These other holes, if you wish to, you could notch if you don't have a hole punch. But this one, unless you replace it with an O-ring or something along those lines, you do want to make sure it is continuous to provide a good seal. I used a leather working punch to do this. I don't know if an office style paper punch would work or not. But again, you can just cut some notches or however you want to do that. To give a rough location on these, I put the transfer screws in the holes and then pressed down on the rubber to make a small indentation. I couldn't actually puncture this rubber with the transfer screws, at least not easily. But that gave me a pretty accurate location of where I wanted to have the holes at. Now I've cut a piece of aluminum bar. This is a 1/4 inch thick, 5/8 inch wide. And I've marked where I want to put a notch on it to clear the lead screw. And I've punched 2 holes, so center marks for 2 holes, which I'll drill to number 21 in thread. And this will go on the back side of our Y-axis mounting plate to hold the front edge of the cover in place. So the location of the drilled holes is not critical, as we're just going to transfer them to the front plate. So I'm going to start just by wasting out some of the material from the notch with some plunge cuts. The notch is entirely optional as well. And now I've just switched to a ball nose cutter to give me a little bit of a rounded profile to the slot. You could probably leave it square without any issue. Now I have our piece notched, drilled, tapped, and deburred, and ready to go into place. And then I've also drilled some oversized holes in our Y mounting plate. And right now I'm leaving all these finishes rough. If you wanted to, you could certainly mill these down or sand them, grind them, whatever you wanted to do there. Be careful with grinding on aluminum, typical wheel, because it will clog and cause problems. And I've also cut my Y-axis cover to length. And rather than cut holes or notches, I have enough space here that I'm just going to simply clamp it. It'll make it a lot easier to loosen 2 screws and then remove the cover when the time comes. One note, if you do end up milling these, make sure and deburr the edge very well, because you are going to be pulling against this edge on occasion, and it would become a pretty nasty rub surface and wear surface. So I'm leaving these as is for now because I plan on painting them later once it's all finished. So I have the bar mounted loosely here on the back, and I'm just going to take our rubber way cover and slide it in there and snug those 2 screws down, and we're held in place. Now in order to measure this, I'd move the saddle all the way to the back. And then as we move the saddle forward, we're going to see that the way cover will extend upwards. And if it's in the way, we can always pull it back a little bit if we want to. But that does give us a nice full range of movement. And right now I'm impacting the vise against the top of the y-axis as it's set right now, so I can't go the last 1/4 inch or so. I'll probably end up taking the height of this y-axis down a bit to allow this to fold back over a little bit easier, and also just to facilitate having this axis move all the way back, even with a vise or a wider tooling plate attached. So I hope you enjoy this installment of the Frankenmill project. If you liked the video, please give it a thumbs up. Leave any suggestions or comments in the comments section, and if you want to see future installments, please subscribe.